Hey everyone, I'm Sean and I'm a first year anesthesiology resident in Las Vegas, Nevada. So I've always been a big fan of channels like Ali Abdal and Graham Stephan where they disclose their incomes and their finances, and I've always wanted to make videos like that. But I've kind of been unemployed for the past 4 years, so I couldn't really do that. But this year I finally started working as a resident doctor, so now I can. Earlier this year in one of my vlogs, I talked about my salary as a resident physician and you guys seem to really enjoy it. In fact, that vlog became my most viewed video of all time. So I thought it'd be fun to go through this past year and look at how much I ended up making overall, paycheck by paycheck, as well as how many hours I worked for each of those paychecks. I have my Notion pulled up right here, so let's get started. Alright, so I have my income tracker pulled up right here. We're just gonna go over what I made as a resident physician. This isn't going to include my incomes from things like YouTube, sponsorships, but I think you guys would be surprised by how much you can make on YouTube versus working as an actual doctor. So if you wanna see a video like that as a follow-up to this one, let me know in the comment section below. Also, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Okay, so let's get into it. As you guys can see, this is my template for my income tracker. It's pretty basic. I am basically just tracking month by month. Every single time I get a new paycheck, I can throw it in here. I like this template a lot because I can just click on new income and I can type in exactly what it is. Like say it's, biweekly paycheck, and I can type in the amount, the source, salary, for example, and then throw the date in and it just adds it to my tracker. So pretty easy to use. So over here, I have the month by month view of my total income, but I think it's a lot better if we scroll down here and look at this list instead, because as you can see, I've tagged each of my paychecks with the rotation that I was on, so we can kind of break down the amount of hours I had to work for that paycheck. Because the big thing with residency compared to other jobs is we get paid the same exact salary regardless of the rotation we're on. So whether I am doing 80 hours a week or 40 hours a week, I'm getting paid the same exact amount. And I think that really helps put some of this into perspective. So I started residency on July 1st. So I began earning a paycheck starting on July 12th. And if you go to the bottom of the table, you can see that I've been working for about 5.5 months. And the total amount that I've made this year as a resident physician since July is about $25,346. Not bad. That definitely makes sense considering my salary is $60,700 a year. So I've worked about half the calendar year and I've made half of $50,000, which is kind of what's to be expected after taxes. So I have another template that I call Finance Tracker because it has the same exact information as you can see, the total amount that I made this year. However, I kind of like it a little bit more visually because it tracks like my net income over the course of the year with this graph. And then it also shows you like the month by month here. You can kind of put it in just like you can on my other template, just underneath the month. And then you can also include expenses here. So let's just say that I have a credit card bill and the amount was $1,500 or something like that. I don't know. And let's just say, let's just call it entertainment. Then if I go back up here, you can see that it's added to my expenses and it reduces it from this net total. So I think this one is better for like visually tracking the income over time. I just haven't been good about adding in my expenses because it's kind of just hard to keep up with every individual purchase. I think I'll probably just be including like my credit card bills on here to deduct from my income. But for that reason, again, I really like this template a lot. But for the sake of this video, we're gonna look at this tracker, mainly because I have these two columns right here to mark what rotation I was on, and also fill in right here how many hours per week I was working on that rotation. So I'm sure you guys have already noticed, but using Notion to track my income has been extremely convenient, and it's kept me motivated to continue tracking my finances. I've been using Notion for years for many other things, which is why I'm so excited to tell you guys that Notion is actually sponsoring this video. Now, like many other medical students, residents, or content creators in general, I have been using Notion as a second brain for many years. In fact, this database is called my Life.io, and this is kind of just where I generally keep things that are just important for my life. So as you can see, I have a calendar here that I can put different events into. The template I use has daily, weekly, and monthly planners, and even vision boards, which I haven't really used yet. However, I think I'm probably going to as I start to set my 2025 goals. Speaking of goals, I literally typed spend less money on January 10th of this year. I don't know if I really accomplished that, but I did accomplish some of my other goals. So for example, these are the long-term goals that I had set for myself at the beginning of 2024. And I was looking back on it and yeah, I ran a half marathon, still can't bench 225, so can't really cross that off. We did hit 50K on YouTube. We did hit 10K on TikTok. I matched successfully into residency, graduated from medical school, and started building a positive monthly income. So now going into 2025, I can set some new goals like, I don't know, 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. I think that'd be awesome. Move to San Diego, which is gonna happen later this year. Oh, I have to run a full marathon, which I'm planning for in April. But you guys get the idea. As I go into the new year, I'm planning on making new goals for myself. And I just love how much you can customize these templates. Like I have pictures of my dogs here. You can set whatever banners you want. I even have this content planner where I can plan out YouTube videos. For example, this one, where I can put some title ideas. If it's a little bit more scripted like this video is, there's a space down here that I can start writing the script or at least brainstorming. And then as you guys have already seen, I have my income trackers, which again have really, really intuitive templates. There's even this little like Notion AI thing down here where you can ask it to do things like brainstorm ideas, get help with something. It's so convenient to have everything I need for tracking my life here in one place. And the brilliant part is I didn't make any of these templates myself. These were all pre-made on the Notion marketplace. There are literally thousands of pre-made templates for things like study guides, wedding planning, content creation, finance tracking, even things like journaling, bucket list, creating goals for yourself. They have templates for everything. You don't have to do any of the work. The customization, the aesthetics, it's limitless, so you can really make it your own. So if you want to go into 2025 feeling organized and ready to crush your goals, make sure to get started on Notion for free. I'll have the link in the description box below. You can also scan the QR code here on the screen. Thank you so much again to Notion for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to talking about how much money I made in 2024. All right, so without further ado, let's start with the first paycheck. So my very first paycheck on July 12th was for just a little over $1,000. The reason this paycheck was so small was because the pay period ended the week prior and we started work on January 1st. So we essentially only worked for like a week before this pay period ended. So until July 26th, I pretty much had only made $1,000, which was a little disheartening after working for like 3 weeks. Like you're kind of ready to start making something. But then I finally got my first paycheck that was more like what my bi-weekly is gonna look like. And that was for about $1,954. So during this period of time, I was on a general surgery rotation. So my hours were essentially from about 4:30 in the morning to anywhere between 12 in the afternoon to maybe 4 or 5 in the evening. But every other week I was taking 24-hour home call for the entire week. So calculating the average hours is a little bit difficult, but I would ballpark anywhere from like 60 to, I don't know, 80 hours on average. Technically, if I was on 24-hour call, you're hitting like much more than that. Some people would consider that as part of your hours. Some people wouldn't. I would kind of consider it because even though you're not physically at the hospital, I had to remain available in case a patient came into the emergency room and had to go to surgery at like 3 in the morning. My phone had to be on and I had to be ready to get up out of bed, get dressed, drive to the hospital, and scrub in for surgery. That's another thing about this particular career that you have to consider is you're working sometimes even when you're not at the hospital. And it's stressful. Even if you're not physically doing anything and you're at home, you still have it on your mind. You don't get good sleep because you're worried about your phone going off. So we'll just call it 60 to 80 hours because it's just hard to calculate how many hours I actually worked. But the next month I was on medicine, and that one is very easy. I was working 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every single day. However, you'd get there a little bit early for sign out with the night team, and you would leave a little bit late when you would sign back out to the night team when they came in the evening. So on average, I was doing probably like 12 and a half hours per day. But if we were admitting patients from the emergency room that day, which we did about 3 to 4 times a week, sometimes we'd have to stay until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night to finish our notes and stuff. So on average per week for this block, I was doing anywhere from 72 to about 80 hours per week. This one definitely sucked. That was very, very rough. So basically for this $1,941 paycheck, I was working anywhere from about 144 to 160 hours for this amount. Fast forward though to cardiology, where my schedule was a lot more relaxed. On this rotation, I worked from about 8 a.m. until on average 4 o'clock every single day, and that was 5 days a week. So pretty much I would say about 40 hours per week on cardiology. That was pretty nice. So for this paycheck, I was getting paid the exact same amount as I was getting paid for medicine and working about half the hours. Oh, and you'll notice that for this paycheck on September 20th, I got paid an extra about $1,030. That's because this paycheck included our orientation pay for the week prior to when we started residency, as well as a food stipend to cover the cost of any meals that we had to pay for if we were on call or working at night and the cafeteria for the hospital wasn't open. So let's jump forward to October. I was back on medicine, so same thing, we were working about 72 to 80 hours a week. In November, I was on the endocrinology outpatient rotation, so very 9 to 5 type hours. I was there about 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So I was doing a normal 40-hour week, which again, coming off of medicine for that feels incredible. Now, if you guys have been watching my recent vlogs, you know that for the past 4 weeks, I have been on an ICU rotation, and that was probably one of the hardest months of my entire life, because not only was I working in probably the most difficult setting in the entire hospital. It's very intense, not only like mentally, but also physically and emotionally. But I was also studying for my board exams while I was on my ICU rotation. So I'd have to come home from work and study for like 3 hours every single evening. And then on my 1 day off per week, I had to spend that whole day studying. Now it's up to you guys if you consider studying as part of work hours. I kind of do, and the reason for that is because passing step 3 is a requirement of residency. It's a requirement that my program has for us by a certain date. So it's something that I have to do for my licensure, right? It's part of the job. Passing step 3 is part of the job. So I personally would consider it as part of the hours, and I'm just gonna include it here as part of the hour range because again, I was coming home from work studying and then waking up the next morning and going back to work. So my hours for ICU were very similar to medicine. I would meet the night team for sign out at 7 in the morning, and then we'd sign back out to them at 7 at night, and that was 6 days a week. So I was scheduled for a baseline of 72 hours. Now, there were some days where we had to stay later than 7 o'clock if we had a really critical patient or if a code happened right at the end of the shift. There were some days that I stayed till 8:30. And 6 days a week, I was coming home and studying for 3 hours every single night. And then on my 1 day off, I was studying for about 10 hours. So just for the ICU, I was working upwards of 80 hours. And then if you add in the studying, that was anywhere from like, let's say 18 plus 10, probably like 25 to 30 hours a week studying for my boards. We'll just put it at around 100 hours. So for this rotation, I was essentially ranging like 72 to 100 hours of work per week. That freaking sucked. I'm not gonna lie. I just recently took my boards, so I'm very excited that that phase is over, hopefully, as long as I passed. But it was hard. That really sucked. But now I am back on an ambulatory rotation, so kind of a 9 to 5 clinic type thing. And so I'm working about 40 hours a week right now, which is absolutely incredible. As you guys can see, I got pretty lucky with the way that my rotations were scheduled. I have a great stagger of having a block where I work very long hours and then having a block where my hours are a lot less than the previous one. So even though it's been really hard, I've really gotten lucky with having the stagger. I have some co-residents that have had to do things like go straight from medicine to ICU to surgery. Anyway, that was pretty much the breakdown of these paychecks, and the sum total is about $25,000 for 5.5 months of working as a resident, which not bad. It's more than I've made in the past few years, so it feels pretty good to be at least earning something. Now my next step is to actually go through and include all of my expenses in my finance tracker. So keeping up with that is gonna be one of my New Year's resolutions. If you guys are wondering what I do with my income, we can also talk about that in a separate video, but I essentially just have these automated transfers set up that my money essentially just moves to a high yield savings account, investment account, my Roth. Everything's automated, so I don't have to do any of it. But again, if you guys want me to break that down in a future video, let me know in the comment section below. Now, there are a couple controversial topics I want to hit before the video ends. First off, some residency programs like mine have other benefits that make the pay more worth it. For example, we get like $300 a month in meal stipends. That literally covers the cost of food that I would be using my own money on anyway, so that's really nice. There's other benefits that help you save money. For example, I have an electric car and we have free EV charging at my hospital, so I don't really have to spend any of my own money on charging my vehicle. But this isn't the case at all programs. In fact, I was just talking to one of my friends the other day, and at her program, they don't have any meal stipends at the hospital. They have to pay for all of their own hospital food, and they have to pay to park at their own hospital, which I think is ridiculous. Like, imagine you have a job and you have to pay for parking at your job. I have no idea how that can even be a thing. Again, my program doesn't do that, so I'm very fortunate, but it's not uncommon. Secondly, I'm very lucky to have this salary personally, but I also live at home and have very little overhead expenses, and I make extra money from social media. But imagine you've been in medical school, unemployed for the past 4 years, and now you finally have a job, but you need money for rent, groceries, car payments, gas. I've got co-residents who have children, like literally newborn babies that they now also need money for. Not to mention you need to start paying back your debt that has been accruing interest since you started medical school. That's a position that many new graduates are in, and when you look at it from that perspective, it's not a lot of money. Now, some people in the comments were saying that this is training, we should feel lucky to be even getting paid for training. And yes, I know that residency is training, but it's also a job that required 8+ years of schooling with your undergrad, sometimes a master's, and then your doctorate, clinical training, passing board exams. Again, it's not like you just like applied to be a resident. Like, you had to spend many years to get the training to even be allowed to work in this role. Also, again, it is still a job. However, residents don't get a lot of the benefits that other careers have. For example, we don't get overtime pay. As you guys saw, my hours range from rotation to rotation, but I got the exact same amount. You don't get anything extra for working more than 60 or 80 hours a week. Nor do we get any differentials for working at night, for example. This isn't normal, and there is no field other than healthcare that this would ever be considered acceptable. In fact, pretty much every other profession within healthcare receives benefits and bonuses and pay differentials for working overtime or working overnight, except for residents. Again, this is a job, it's a career. We should not be exempt from the fair labor laws. We should be included in it so that the standard can be the same as the standard for other professions. Let me know what you guys think. I know this is a very controversial topic. In my other video, you guys were really going at it in the comments, and I loved seeing the different opinions you had, the different ideas you had, the way that we can make changes in the system. And as you guys can see, this is not something I'm afraid to talk about. In fact, I think we need to talk about this kind of stuff because otherwise nothing will ever change for the future generations. So again, let me know in the comment section what you guys think. Also, if you guys like this kind of content and want to see more videos like this where I also include my YouTube income or just talk about how I manage my finances in general, let me know in the comment section below. I really like talking about it, so I'm happy to make more videos like this. Huge shout out again to Notion for sponsoring this video. Again, I've been using them for many years. I'm very stoked to finally get to work with Notion. Again, you guys can get started with Notion for free. Just click the link in the description box below. Anyway, thank you guys so much again for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.